Chapter 4. A Wonderful Party. Hearing the cry, Pete and Pam looked up. The tall pile of cans was about to fall on their heads. The children jumped to one side as the cans clattered to the floor. Mr. and Mrs. Hollister and the customers came running over to see what had happened and who had cried out the warning. "I guess I shouted just in time," said an elderly man who now stood near the children. He was tall and thin and had twinkling eyes. "Thank you," said Mr. Hollister. "Ricky, Pete, and Pam might have been injured. I can't understand what made the cans topple over." "A boy pushed them," said the stranger. "I don't know who he was, but I saw him run out that side door." At mention of the word boy, Pete dashed out the side door and up the driveway to the street. He saw a boy disappearing around the corner. Pete tried to catch up to him, but lost sight of him. Maybe it was Joey, Pete thought. I'll find out sometime. When he returned to the store, the cans had been picked up. The old man was talking to Mr. Hollister. He said he was Roy Tinker, but that everybody called him just Tinker. He used to work at the trading post before he had been hit by a car and gone to the hospital. Said Mr. Hollister, looking about the store. More customers were coming in. "How would you like to work for me?" When Tinker said he would, the children were pleased. What a nice man to have at the trading post. Mr. Hollister said Tinker could drive the store's small truck as well as wait on customers. Tinker thanked him and immediately went to help the people. During the afternoon, Pete sold some tools and Ricky and Holly several games. Pam was busy at the seed counter. Even little Sue helped by selling some doll's clothespins to a little girl. "This is lots of fun," said Pam, as they were about to close the store for the evening. "More fun than just playing store. I'm so glad we have the trading post and Tinker and our new home too." "Three cheers for the Happy Hollisters," called out Tinker, catching their enthusiasm. When the children arrived home, they found 5 little envelopes, all alike, waiting for them. "What are these?" asked Pam. "Something nice," Mrs. Hollister answered, smiling. Eagerly, the 5 of them tore open their first mail at their new home. Holly was the first to read hers. "An invitation!" she cried. "An invitation to a party!" As each child read his invitation, he gave a shout of joy. The letters had been sent off by Jeff and Ann Hunter, who lived down the street. The party was to introduce the Hollister children to their new neighbors and would be held Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock. The next day, all of them arrived promptly. Jeff and Ann opened the door. Jeff was 8 years old. He had dark, straight hair and blue eyes and looked like his sister. Only Ann, who was 10, had curly hair that hung in ringlets. Her long black lashes made her gray eyes look large and pretty, and she had deep dimples when she laughed. Pam knew immediately that she had found a new friend and was very happy. She introduced herself and her brothers and sisters to Mrs. Hunter and said the Hollisters were very pleased to have been invited. "I'm delighted that such a nice family has moved into the big house," Mrs. Hunter smiled. While Jeff was showing Ricky his playroom, Dave Mead arrived. He was 12 years old and had tousled hair. He lived 3 doors from the Hollisters. Right away, he and Pete began to talk about the lake and fishing and sailboats. Holly wondered if there would be any girls her age. No sooner had she thought this when Donna Martin ran in. Donna was 7. She was 7 and had a dimple in each cheek. "I'm glad you moved here," she said to Holly. "Would you like to come over and play with my dollhouse sometime?" How jolly everybody was. A few more children arrived, and then the doorbell gave a long ring. "I wonder who that is," Anne said as she hurried to answer the bell. The children heard a loud voice at the door. "I'm here." Joey Brill. The Hollister children gasped, and Joey gasped when he saw them. "How'd you get here?" he asked rudely. "We were invited," Pam answered. "Huh. The hunters sure took a chance asking you," Joey said. "Nobody knows who you are." Mrs. Hunter stepped forward. "Joey, if you can't act nice, you may leave." "All right." "Does Joey live near here?" Holly whispered to Donna. "Just around the corner," Donna answered. "Nobody likes him. He's always making trouble." "Then why was he invited?" Holly asked. Anne heard her and said, "Mother's very kind. She's always hoping Joey will behave himself." At first, Joey Brill did, but after he'd been quiet for a few minutes, he began to argue with Pete. "I bet I can throw a ball farther than you can," he said, "and row a boat faster and swim underwater better, too." "We'll wait and see," replied Pete quietly. Pam took Ann Hunter aside. "Is Joey always bragging like that?" she asked. "Yes," said Anne. "That's one of the reasons why nobody likes him." The children played games for nearly 2 hours. Mrs. Hunter helped while they were playing musical chairs. Joey was put out of the game early when Ricky slipped into a seat ahead of him and Joey landed in Ricky's lap. "I guess you thought I was Pam," Ricky giggled. "Why would you want to sit on a boy's lap?" Joey shouted, "Be quiet!" Then he gave Ricky a hard shove. "Stop that, Joey," Mrs. Hunter said sternly. Joey glowered and went off into a corner. Holly won the game and was given a prize, which was a tiny doll with a lacy dress. She hugged her tightly. "I'm going to name her Anne after you," she told Ann Hunter. After that, the children trooped outside. There were slides and swings, and they had fun on them for 20 minutes. Then Mrs. Hunter called them to the porch, where tables and chairs were set up. The children came running and sat down at their places. There was a big dish of ice cream and cake at each place, along with a little favor. The children opened their favors, which contained little hats and papers on which were printed their fortunes. They giggled as each one in turn read aloud something funny about himself. "Listen to mine," said Donna Martin. "If you'll find a tail and swing from a tree, you easily can be a little monkey." Finally, when it was Holly's turn, Joey Brill, who was sitting next to her, leaned over to look at the fortune. "I can read it myself," said Holly. "If you have a neighbor quite contrary, my guess is that her name is Mary." "Mary, Mary!" laughed several of the children, pointing at Joey Brill. "Joey's name is Mary." Joey became very angry. He wanted to hit somebody, but he did not dare. Holly was giggling so hard she had to put her head down until her nose was almost touching the ice cream. Then suddenly Joey had an idea. He pushed Holly's head down right into the ice cream. Joey jumped up from the table and ran for the door. Pete instantly set off after him. He gained on the mean boy as they raced across the lawn. Then, with a flying tackle, he tumbled Joey to the ground. The boys rolled over and over as the other children of the party gathered around. "Give it to him good!" cried Dave. When the fighters scrambled to their feet, Joey punched Pete and Pete hit him back. Finally, Mrs. Hunter reached the scene. "Stop! Stop!" she cried, separating the boys. Then she gave Joey a scolding. The boy scowled. "It's all their fault," he said. "The Hollisters think they can come to our town and do anything they want. Who cares about the Hollisters anyway? Their house is haunted." With that, Joey hurried away. Pete turned to Jeff. "Haunted? Is our house haunted?" All the children began to answer at the same time, each one with a different story. Finally, Pete got them to talk one at a time. "I heard," declared Jeff, "that a rich old man once built your house and hid a lot of money in it. Then he forgot where he put it." "No wonder," continued Dave. "He built a lot of secret places in it. Anybody might forget where he hid a treasure in a house like that." Pam did not really believe all this and said so. But Donna added, "Our laundress says the old man walks in his sleep and goes to your house at night to find the lost treasure." The Hollisters didn't know what to believe. When the party was over, they hurried home to tell their mother about the mystery. She did not seem the least bit worried. "Nonsense," she said. "There is no such thing as a haunted house. Besides, the man who built this house is a very nice old gentleman. He lives on the other side of town with his daughter." "Then he'd have a long way to walk in his sleep, wouldn't he?" Ricky chuckled. "Do you suppose he uses a sleepwalking map?" "If our house isn't haunted," Holly spoke up, "why did we hear those funny noises?" Pam was not convinced either. "What about the face in the attic window?" Mrs. Hollister said that everything could no doubt be explained and that they should not fret about it. "Now, go outside and play until bedtime," she said, smiling. Next morning, Pete decided to find out more about the story of the hidden treasure. He would ask the grown-up neighbors what they knew about it. He spoke to several of his new friends' parents. The stories were all the same. The old man who had owned the house had never caused any trouble, but he was queer. He chased away children who came on his property and rarely spoke to the neighbors. But no one knew exactly what the treasure was, nor where it was hidden. "If ever there was one, he probably took it with him," Mrs. Smith said. Pete had been so busy inquiring that before he realized it, he was half a mile from his home. He was about to turn back when suddenly he spied a little girl pushing a doll carriage. It looked familiar. His sister had had one just like it. Could this be Sue's stolen carriage?